Welcome to another episode of WTF Cinema. Welcome back to WTF Cinema's review of One Crazy Summer, starring John Cusack. John, how could you do this? After all we've been through together, after all we meant to one another, how could you do this to me? So our villain and his father are involved in a land deal that requires them to get the house of the recently deceased father of the damsel in distress who came to the island with our heroes. Also, it turns out that there's some kind of boat race coming up, and should they lose the boat race, which they never do, then they'll be disinherited by the grandfather of the villain, and they won't have any money to make any of their plans come to fruition, and they'll have to go and get jobs. Gee. So all of their wealth and everything depends solely on a boat race. Wonder if that'll be important later in the movie. Ham-fisted writers. Seriously, this movie is like a mugging. It sits around doing nothing, and then all of a sudden runs up out of nowhere, shoves some plot into you, takes your self-respect and goes away, waiting to do it again. 20-30 minutes goes by of just filler, and then blah, 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 blah. Super condensed, complicated plot dropped in your lap, and then it runs off. Wow, there is no flow to this movie. There is no pacing. This isn't Krull. This isn't padding. This is just really poor pacing. They have enough material to make it the length of the movie, and it's only an hour and a half long. But they just condense it in odd ways so that you can get joyous scenes like the next one. So the fat friend is buried up to his neck in the sand because that's what normal people do on a beach. I mean, haven't you ever been there? You're hanging out on the beach and you're like, this is too relaxing with the sounds of the waves and the sun. I need to be buried up to my neck so I can't possibly move. That's the only way this could be more fun. So Bobcat decides to give him a little shade by putting a seat over him. Well, isn't that nice? I'm sure I can't see where this is going. Oh look, a fat guy with headphones is sitting in the chair, and he can't hear the cries for help from the face underneath him. Now the fat guy's gonna eat some chili, and we cut to the paramedics arriving. Why? I mean, okay, the implication and the joke is that the fat guy ate some chili, farted, and the flatulence caused the guy underneath to asphyxiate. I don't think that works. Let me share a little secret with you. I've farted a couple times in my life. In fact, I probably do it at least a couple times a week. Nice good ones too, just ba-roomph, right? Typically when I'm alone, ladies, I'm not that classless, I assure you. But there have been times where I've farted in the company of other people. I've never had anybody pass out from my flatulence. Not once. Not once has anybody's life ever been in any danger of any kind. Except for those couple times my sister vomited, but she's got a weak stomach. So I'm not sure how the joke here is supposed to work. The fat guy farts in his face, which causes him to almost die. I don't even know why that's supposed to be funny, unless it's funny because it's gas. Except you don't even hear the fart. And if you're trying to capitalize on the humor of flatulence, which is a winner with the fellas, normally you hear the sound of the gas. I mean, you hear the That's the funny part, but not this time. In this movie, we imply that maybe he's gonna fart, and then we cut away, and when we cut back, the guy's been gassed to death. That doesn't work. That doesn't work at all. That joke fails on every possible level. The setup, the execution, and the payoff are all abysmal failures. Congratulations, One Crazy Summer. You just made gas unfunny. Now, Hoops is forced to decide between the damsel in distress, who he's been spending time with and gotten to know, and true romance seems to be blossoming. And if you're watching the movie, you know she's the true love for him. I mean, it couldn't be more obvious if she wore a t-shirt. Or should he instead go out with the girlfriend of the villain who has asked him out? Now, true, he's already promised the damsel in distress that he'll go to her show. He has given her his word. But the villain's girlfriend's kinda hot, right? So what are you supposed to do?
Hey, wait a minute, pull over, I know her. Hey, you need a ride? That was a friend of mine.
I don't pick up hitchhikers.
And he goes with the slutty girl. Shocking. Shocking. Well, to be fair, if he didn't, the movie would probably only be about 45 minutes long, because then he wouldn't have pissed off the girl and had to win her back. Now we cut to a scene where Bobcat Goldthwait is playing with the props from the movie that's shooting there. I've been on film sets before. You can look me up on IMDb if you don't believe me. It's Jeff Hillary. It's right there. There's always a lot of people walking around, but at no point would anybody leave the prop van, especially with that many props in it, completely unmanned, unguarded, and never swing by to check and see what's going on. Okay? You can't get away with subtle, sneaky, underhanded thieving on a film set. There's too many people doing too many things. Now, normally, in a case like this, I would try to justify the movie's ignorance. I would say, well, you know, it's not surprising that they don't know how a butcher works. Maybe they've never been a butcher and they're just guessing. But this is a film set. So I would have to argue that filmmakers didn't know how a film set runs. That's the argument I would have to make to defend them. I would have to say that these people making a film don't have a realistic view and a realistic knowledge of people who make films. That argument would be as retarded as this film. There's no two ways about it. They deliberately ignored knowledge that they had to have in order to set up not one, but a bevy of gags that follow from him playing around in the prop trailer. Throwing common sense to the wind in order to make a cheap laugh. Welcome to WTF Cinema. I'm happy to have you. Now, for the next 20 minutes, nothing of any real significance happens, but I will say that this 20-minute period here is probably the least worst of the entire film. So it's kind of funny to me that it's the 20 minutes of the film that accomplishes absolutely nothing. Like, I don't know why they bothered trying to have a plot. Apparently, if they just ran around and had fun, it would have been a little bit more entertaining. And no, I'm not going to show you any of the footage from that 20 minutes because you didn't come here to watch stuff that wasn't horrible. You came here to watch me rip a movie a new one. So let's get back on with that. So our friends are hanging out at the beach again, and Bobcat Goldthwait is bringing sexy back.
Yeah, be patient. Wait.
Now?
Oh, okay.
Hello, ladies. I am here for your daughters.
Ah, that melodious voice. So pure, like crystal. Yeah, he spends the entire movie screaming at people. Constantly. There's a scene where he asks a girl to dance, and they dance for 5 seconds, and he goes, "Ah!" And she falls down. And sometimes he just runs across people on the street, and he's just like, "Hey, how's it going?" Ah! Yeah, it's not obnoxious at all. It's not at all like this movie is raping my ears. So the fat friend is out there in the water when his floaty pops. And of course, that little piece of the floaty going flings him through the air hundreds of feet, skids him along the ground, and wedges his face underneath a chair. I'm pretty sure that's not how physics works. I'm pretty sure the initial pop would have been it. Like, if there was going to be any movement, it'd be at that point. But that's not how floaties work. Any of you who've ever used a floaty, or seen a friend use a floaty, know how dangerous it is if you poke a hole in it.
Oh hey kids, Aristarchus Johnson here. You may remember me from the Unnatural 20 line of quality filmed entertainment from Mad Centaur Productions, the same people that bring you WTF Cinema, including our newest Unnatural 20, The Search for Steve. But I'm here today to talk to you about floaties. You see kids, floaties are not toys. Floaties are dangerous, gas-filled bags of death. If you or someone you know were to somehow puncture a floaty, the resulting explosion could rocket you hundreds, if not thousands of feet in the air. You might land on some power lines. You might land in a wheat thrasher. So if you see a child playing with a floaty, take it away from him immediately. Remember, safety is power.
And I guess the friend got farted on again by the same fat guy? There wasn't even chili this time. There wasn't anything to tell us that the guy may in fact fart. There wasn't. He just got his head wedged under there, which made even less sense this time because he had his arms free. He could have been slapping at the guy. Hey, I'm down here. And the guy could have stood up and he could have gotten away. But no. He laid there wedged underneath the butt and then the paramedics arrived. Once again, we are supposed to infer, I suppose, that flatulence was at play. This movie is really taking the comedy out of farts. And for that, I will always hate it. And that's all for this week, I'm afraid. See you next week.
Thank you for watching WTF Cinema. Until next time, what the f***, man?